Have you ever come across this situation where you've created a material, applied it to an object, and you've duplicated the object, but all of them look the exact same? You'd require some sort of variation, but right now, every object looks like it's an exact copy of the other, and the best you could do is rotate them each individually by a bit to create some sort of variation. But overall, the object material is still with the exact same design, which looks very repetitive, and sitting and selecting each of them and rotating them manually would take forever. In this sort of a situation, you could create variation really easily by just making a few changes to the actual material. So if you open the material tab, you can see the setup for this particular material that I created, which is a fairly simple setup with the principal BSDF being fed by a color ramp whose factor is controlled by a wave texture whose coordinates are dealt with a noise texture. Now, the noise texture has been hooked up to the mapping and texture coordinate nodes accordingly using the Node Wrangler add-on, or adding them manually won't make a difference. So now we'd have to actually change the coordinate system for each of these to create the variation. And in order to do that, we could just add something to the vector that's being fed into the mapping. So let's do that. The way you can do that is by adding in an object info node. From here, you get something called random, which actually sees the object, and for every individual object creates a random number between the values 0 to 1. So since 0 to 1 is really small, we can just add in a math node and multiply that by a really large number, like something like 1000. So let's take the random, put that in right over there, and then take this and add this to the texture coordinates. So in order to do that, we can just do vector math and place that in right here and add this value into that socket. So once you have that, you see you get infinite variation for each object. Now, if you were to take an object and just duplicate it, you'd see that the duplicated object has different textures than the one that you just duplicated. So if you shift D it again, you see you get another variation. And like this, if you have an infinite number of objects, you'd get an infinite number of variations to those objects without actually manually having to make any changes or create separate materials. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope it taught you something in a really quick format. If you require more of these, please comment them down below. If you have any other questions or queries, do let me know and I'll try and clarify them as soon as possible. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, stay creative.